Hey moving athletes, welcome back to the gym. I'm Jesse, and today we'll be talking about how to perform the perfect kipping muscle up on the rings. In today's video, we'll be highlighting 6 main areas to look out for into making sure we help you obtain the perfect kipping muscle up on the rings. So firstly, what is a kipping muscle up? Let's look at a video. A kipping muscle up on the rings is a strength move that involves swinging to go from below the rings, the transition to end up in support on top of the rings. In the gymnastics world, we call this a front uprise. In comparison, the strict muscle up does not use swing or momentum to get on top of the rings, but rather starts in a still hanging position. Let's watch a slow-mo version of the kipping muscle up on the rings. As an overview, as we watch Blake perform the kipping muscle up, let's pay attention to 6 main areas here. The mount or starting point, we're starting from the hang position without a false grip, and we're mounting from below the rings rather than behind the rings. Next, we've got to look at the Kip Swing, which is the beat of the hollow arch swing to get the momentum. There's an elevation and pull phase to pay attention to. The transition from going from below the rings to on top of the rings, the push phase, and then lastly, the descend. These are the 6 main areas that we're going to focus on more in depth next. Now let's first start with the mount. This is how we're going to get onto the rings. We can really do this 2 main ways. First way is to jump from right below the rings, or we can use a box to get elevated, grab the rings, still ourselves, and begin from this position. Now either way, we do not want what's called a pendular swing, which looks a little bit more like a trapeze swing, where the whole body is swinging with the rings rather than hanging below the ring still and moving the body. Interestingly, the way to mount the kipping rings on bar is different from how we're going to mount it from the rings. On the bar, we stand behind further back to jump in to get a little bit of that momentum. And on the rings, we're starting directly underneath and then starting the swing from this position. Now this can be done with a false grip if the swing is small. However, if you're picking up at a higher swing and or connecting multiple kipping muscle ups, that false grip kind of has to phase out to more of the neutral wrist position, or else gravity will pull it straight anyway and make you feel like you're slipping. So the grip going to be more of a neutral position here. The ring swing that we're developing here is what we're going to use to get the biomechanical advantage to achieve the skill. This will make the muscle up easier compared to the strict, where we're starting from a still hang position. Here we should see 2 curved shapes, a hollow in the front and an arch in the back, and we're alternating and transitioning from one to the other smoothly. And I'm using the word curved because we don't want angles. We don't want the wrist, shoulder, hip, or knee angle really forming here, because that'll make the skill and swing more inefficient and lead to some kind of jerk or a yank, but rather curves and more a straight body through the bottom as we transition into the next shape. We're going to cover the ears with our shoulders while we maintain this swing, and this will help maintain the full body arch and hollow position. During this swing, the head is going to be neutral and looking forward, and there is always tension maintained on the rings. Slack, on the other hand, where we lose tension, is where we see the cable get a little bit loose, and maybe it'll feel like you're disconnected and actually floating in free space because you've lost tension on the rings. Tension meaning it's taut and there's pressure downward at all times, which actually changes as you swing. When your legs are in the front, you have to push back on the rings a little more. When your legs are in the back, vice versa, it'll feel like you're pushing forwards a little bit more. This is the thing to have to understand when you're doing the ring swing. For the elevation phase, we want to make this an extension of our front swing, where we're rising in the front. We want to kick to a position that's lower than ring height. We want to immediately stop our feet from rising. We want to pop our hips open because we're coming from a relatively rounded shape. We'll pop the hips open, pull the rings to the chest and hips, and then aggressively sit up on top of the rings. And again, I'm saying the key is to stop the upward momentum of the feet once we reach it, because if they rise too high, you can't counter flip and rotate the upper body on top of the rings, but rather you'll float maybe more so in this horizontal position and cannot turn over the chest on top of the rings. And midway in this elevation phase, we should reach what looks like the top of a body row. So if you swung up, stop the feet, we pull the rings, our body is horizontal in this position, and this is the elevation piece before we transition. In the transition phase, we'll be coming from the top of a body row position. We want to keep our feet from not rising any further. We want to sit the shoulders forwards on top of the rings and then rotate the hands to be on top of the rings as well. This will direct us right into the 5th phase, which is the push phase. The push phase is an extension of the dip. Now, if you catch your kipping muscle up lower, it's going to be more of a full range dip. But if you catch your kipping muscle up higher because it's explosive and you're able to transfer the momentum, it actually feels like maybe half of the dip. It's very little. Either way, you want to keep the rings close to your body in this push phase and then finish with the straight arm lockout with the rings turned out. The descend phase begins with an eccentric dip. So after we're at the top, we're ready to go into the next swing or kipping muscle up. We want to start to bend the arms a little bit. Then we want to actually lean the shoulders back while the legs move in front of us. We'll transition the hands back down under the rings. And then we're trying to lower back into a hollow position. And the goal here is to re-enter the front portion of a swing so we can catch it at the bottom, carry on to the next arch, and then go into the next swing or kipping muscle up in the front. It's also important to know that the descending phase for the kipping muscle up on rings is different than the descend of the kipping muscle up on bar. If you descend without leaning back with the legs in front, you're going to kill the momentum and basically just come back to a still hanging position, finding only that you've lost your momentum and have to regain it and pick up with more swings again to get to the next kipping muscle up. Let's take one more look at Blake's kipping muscle up in slow-mo so we can pinpoint each of the areas now that you're more familiar with them. So first, starting from below the rings, we mount from directly below, get into the neutral wrist position, start the hollow arch ring swing, kicks the legs up in the front, immediately halts the upward trajectory of his feet, pops the hips open while doing the body row phase, and then sits his shoulders on top of the rings after transitioning, and lands in support to finish the lockout. And then on the descend, starts to lower like a dip, leans the shoulders back, legs come in front, lowers through the hollow, and then carries on with the next repetition. A note on prerequisites: when guiding athletes to do any kind of muscle up, we want to make sure they've already mastered the pull-up, dip, and core fundamental, which you can find in our app, and a link for that is right here on the left. In general, you need to know how to do a ring swing, chest to rings pull-ups, full range dips, as well as a strong support hold on top of the rings. And the rest will be stringing it together and timing the movements with coordination to achieve the whole kipping muscle up. So what muscles are used when doing the kipping muscle up on rings? This will be taxing the forearms, the biceps, triceps, lats, the pectorals. There should also be muscle engagement in the lower body to stay tight, like the quads and the glutes. So what are some of the benefits of the kipping muscle up on rings? The benefit of the kipping muscle up on rings is that it's really a full body workout. You're taxing the core and the upper body all in one. You're combining full body swings with vertical horizontal pulling as well as vertical pushing, and you're learning how to create a biomechanical advantage to be able to achieve more reps when compared to just doing strict muscle ups. Training and mastering the muscle up on the rings demands more stability, which will actually in turn make you feel stronger when you're on stable apparatus like parallel bars or a single bar. Thank you for watching our video on how to perform the perfect kipping muscle up on rings, where we showcased 6 different phases to focus on, talking about technique, ranges of motion, talked about the muscles used, and providing the ideal template of how to do this and how to string together multiple. Now, if you want to check how to do the strict muscle up on the rings, we have that video too. And we also have videos on muscle up on bar. You can check those over here to the right. So again, thanks for checking out our video, and keep training hard because we've got many more difficult skills to challenge you with ahead. Really quick, if you want to get started with calisthenics but are unsure of how to do so, I highly recommend trying our free calisthenics assessment. It will only take you 5 minutes to complete. You'll receive a detailed, personalized training program complete with recommendations and workouts you can use right away. If you found these videos helpful, please click the like button below and leave any comments or questions you might have in the comment section below. See you next time.